I think it's fair to say that USC is a defense first team now. And I'm wondering, did Coach Riley lose his identity? Is the offense holding this team back?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download this podcast, this show is always going to be free, and you know I always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So USC held Wisconsin this past weekend to 82 yards of offense in the second half. Pretty good. A lot better, well, a little bit better than holding Michigan to 97 yards in the second half. They did that on the road in Ann Arbor. So both of those are really good outcomes. Yeah, USC had a better outcome overall in their win against Wisconsin. That's not the point I'm trying to make. On yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, I gave some of those, defensive superlatives, what they did really well. A couple of them. They held Wisconsin just 2 for 10 on third down conversions, and that was including 1 of 6 in the second half when they needed to, shut everything down. They kept Wisconsin from converting both of their fourth down attempts. Coach Luke Fickell after the game said, didn't care where they're playing, in Madison, on the road. When you got 4th and short, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, he anticipates his guys being able to pick those yards up. Didn't happen against USC's defense. I love talking about USC's defense. It's been a long time. But Coach Riley is proven, you know what? A zebra can change his stripes. Now he's a defensive first guy. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's good. I think it's going to help him, his overall resume, help him continue to develop as a coach. Remember, he's still young, 40. But I think right now he's changed his stripes. He's becoming defense first mentality. I think it's affecting his true identity. The team's offensive identity. That's who he really is. Being able to dial up plays, have explosive offenses, make any quarterback look like a Heisman winner. He hasn't stopped doing that. But so far through 4 games, USC's offense has not been explosive. And I'm wondering, is the offense right now kind of holding the team back? I mean, they're 3-1, don't get me wrong. Not complaining. Just kind of, look at some underlying things here. Things that maybe we should be a little bit concerned about. For instance, USC scored on their first offensive drive against Wisconsin. But even then, they looked off. It wasn't easy. And let me remind everybody that first drive, it started on a short field. They fair caught the kick, or the kick went through the back of the end zone, either or, touchback. USC was going to have the ball at the 25. I think it was Tackett Curtis who got called for a penalty on that kick, 15-yard penalty. USC started at the 40. But it wasn't an easy score, even though it was a short field. So I guess my question again is, why is USC's offense struggling to score early in the game? What's up with the slow starts? I mean, here's another little factoid. Did you know that when USC scored on their first drive against Wisconsin, that was the first time they've done that since they played Washington last November in the Coliseum? It's a long time. I mean, again, this particular scoring drive, it had its challenges. And it's not so much that the O-line made it difficult. Not on this particular drive. I mean, you had a drop pass. Wisconsin even chipped in with an offsides penalty. That happened on a third down. USC had their run game stuffed on a 3rd and 2. Eventually, they scored. I think it was 6 or 7 plays. Jacoby Lane hit this first touchdown pass of the game, caught that ball between 2 defenders. Beautiful, beautiful pitch and catch. But that was it. It wasn't easy. I mean, it was a difficult throw, tight window, great catch. Now I've been catching a little bit of smoke, some blowback for my halftime instant reaction when USC was trailing 21-10. So let me ask the question to the listening audience. Hit me up. You know where to find me. If you're watching on YouTube, leave your comment. Find me on Twitter. Who should be responsible when a team looks unprepared? Because that's what my halftime mini rant was all about. Despite the drop passes, okay, that's execution. Or the poor throw from Miller Moss that kind of left Zachariah Branch in a bad position. I'm sure he wanted to make a better play on the ball, but again, that whole play looked discombobulated. Don't forget, you had Noah. He had a false start on a 4th down attempt by USC on one drive. You had another drive that, the tackle got beat so bad, Miller coughed up the ball on a fumble. He gets sacked in a fumble. There was 4 straight drives of yuck after USC's first scoring drive. So, I mean, what was that? Why is the offense struggling early in games? Why does it take a halftime adjustment to get things clicking? I mean, is Coach Riley struggling with his play calling because maybe the offensive line has its limitations? Is that part of the process right now? How much of this is just poor execution? I gave you a few examples, different drives. Again, is this about Coach Riley kind of just finding his rhythm in the offense? I begged for the running game and the tight end to be a bigger part of the offense. So far, so good. Thank you, Coach Riley. Love it. But even against Utah State, USC didn't score on their first drive. Didn't happen. Is this a concern? Or should we just kind of accept the fact that, this is just going to be a grinded out type of team on offense? There's so much confidence in their defense that, hey, we don't need to do anything dumb, take any unnecessary risks, because the defense is going to get the ball back to us. Let's just play field position. I can't imagine Riley's made that big of an adjustment with his play calling. He still likes that big play capability. But as I mentioned on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, my everydayers, you heard me say this, I think one of the reasons why the wide receivers aren't having those big explosive plays partially is because of the offensive line. Typically you want your quarterback to be able to count to 3 Mississippis before he has to get rid of the ball. Right now he's getting to 1 Mississippi, 2 miss, and then, he's like, all right, get rid of the ball or run, one or the other. You need 3 seconds. Right now, he's getting about 1.5, maybe 2. So how much of that is playing a role with Lincoln Riley's offensive identity right now? We're going into Game 5 on the road against Minnesota. You cannot start slow again on the road. Can't do it. Cannot happen. Can't do it. They got to come out fast, score, and then you can't go another 4 drives without scoring again. I'd like to see them have, if they get 4 or 5 offensive drives in the first half, I'd like to see at least 2 touchdowns and a field goal. I think that's a reasonable, finger quotes, expectation. I'll give you a final score prediction later on this week, but just wanted to kind of, touch on this topic of, why is the offense look worse than USC's defense? Heading into the season, I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. It was, all right, USC is going to have a good offense. They're going to score enough points. Eventually, the defense will, get its footing, and everything will work itself out as the season goes along. It's been the opposite. It's been the defense carrying this team and the offense playing catch up. Again, I didn't see that happening. Did you? Nobody did. So I don't want to see anybody raising their hand. Hey, USC fans, have you heard about ROY? It stands for Return on You. It's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before. And you can actually make contributions right to your favorite athlete. If Bear Alexander was your favorite athlete, I would say cease and desist. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. And as you know, NIL has changed the game for the athletes. Sometimes not for the best, but you have a chance to make it better. When you join ROY, you'll get exclusive content access. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive access to exclusive content from that athlete, such as their announcement decision. So if you're planning on investing in a high school guy, you'll know where he's going. He'll let you know. As well as there's all this behind the scenes footage and other personal reflections, all of which are available only to the fans who supported the athlete. And here's the best part. There's no risk with your contributions. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan's support. If not, the money's returned to the fan. So if you had invested in Bear Alexander, guess what? You're getting that money back. Download ROY for iOS and Android and enter the referral code LOCKEDON, and you're going to be automatically entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase is necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the ROY app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Get off the sidelines and support the players. Change the game with ROY. So you heard me mention Bear in that last update. Let me give you some more update. All right. I told everyone that Bear was no longer on the roster. Okay, if you're an everyday listener, everyday viewer, you already know this. I understand his name is still on the official roster if you check out the USC Athletics site. Bear Alexander made his choice to redshirt. That was his decision, or a joint decision by he and his finger quote father, Tony Jones. Well, yesterday over on WeAreSC.com, Scott Schrader kind of let everyone know that USC had a decision as well for Bear Alexander. Let me just go ahead and tell you what it was. I'm told that Bear Alexander and his pop may have miscalculated the situation that arose last week, and I'm also told he's surprised he can't practice with the team like Gary Bryant Jr. did and like Rayleigh Brown did when they chose to redshirt and leave USC. Interesting. Executive decision. Get out. It was USC's decision to not let Bear Alexander continue working out, practicing with the team. It wasn't going to help anybody. It was only going to draw more animosity. I think everyone involved needed to cut bait, make a fresh start. And it's such a waste. And it was such a huge miscalculation by his father. Look, I get it. You want a red shirt, you want to preserve that a year of eligibility. Fine, I get it. But that redshirt year is actually stunting his development by a whole nother year. And USC is driving that point home. So you know what? Fine. We respect your decision to redshirt, but you got to stay in shape. You got to have a good work ethic. You haven't shown that here, so we're not going to let you do it on your own while we're busting our butts to get this team ready. Not going to happen. You don't get to hang out with a team. You can go on TMZ and say once a Trojan, always a Trojan, actions speak stronger than words. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Bear does not have a great work ethic. You don't want that around the program. It's why his reps during the game were limited. Again, quick timeline. Spring camp, he held out. Wanted that extra NIL swag back. He got it. You would think, all right, you're going to be held to a higher standard now. If you want to be paid like the best player and treated like the best player, you need to represent yourself like the best player. He didn't do that. And because of that, and because of his latest maneuver, he can't practice for the team. He can't use the facilities when the team is around. Bottom line. I really do mean this sincerely. I hope everything works out for him because it does seem like a really big waste of talent. God does not create 6'3", 315-pound athletic guys who can move like Bear does when Bear wants to. That's the problem. I'll say it again. This young man will not develop into what he can possibly be until he cuts that umbilical cord. And he needs to rededicate himself. I was asked this question on Inside the Trojan Huddle. That'll be up later this week. It was one of the questions that Eric McKinney and I were both asked by Chris Harledge. Will USC's defense suffer because Bear is no longer part of the program? Here's my answer. He didn't play on Saturday. USC's defense looked pretty good. Defense did just fine without him. Now, absolutely, you're losing depth. You're losing a really talented depth piece. But that's what Bear was. He wasn't a starter. He was a 20-rep guy. Not bad, but he wants to have that starter minute role. He wants to have 35 to 40 reps per game. They're not given. Got to earn it. So, no, I don't think USC's defense is going to have a drop-off. Now, again, it's a numbers game. You don't want to continue to lose guys. But Kobe Pepe, Nate Clifton, Gavin Meyer, Devin Tompkins, they're not going to stop getting better. Not with this coaching staff. They're going to continue to develop. So, their reps shouldn't be just given to somebody who claims to always be a Trojan. Alexander was never a Trojan. Trojans don't quit. Trojans don't ask for something without earning it. It's all merit-based. So, again, with this executive decision by Coach Riley, it sends a message. It sends a really strong message to the entire team, not just Bear. It's either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem, and I don't want you around. I think he might have learned a little bit of his lesson. I'm not saying that Ray Brown and Gary Bryant were causing issues during their redshirt season before they left. Excuse me. Never heard anything like that. But again, I think this was the next logical step. If you have no intention of being a part of the program in the future going forward, you don't need to be a part of the program for the time being. I don't know. Maybe if he had a better attitude going back in the spring, maybe Coach Riley makes a different decision. Maybe you can still work this thing out. But again, I firmly believe this. Until Bear snips that umbilical cord from his good friend, father, only person who's been there for him, Tony Jones, I don't see how this gets better for Bear, wherever he ends up. So again, message sent, message received. And now you got all that extra NIL money. Give it to someone who deserves it, who's earned it. I don't know what his NIL evaluation is, but let me give you an example. Anthony Beavers Jr. Guy rarely plays. Did you know that he was a team captain for the Wisconsin game? That's the type of player you want on the roster. You want his type of leadership qualities, and he's not going to sulk or whine if he doesn't get the desired playing time. He's going to continue to do things the right way. He's going to help make this team better, whether it's just on the practice field or getting a handful of plays during the game. Whatever it takes. That's how Anthony Beavers approaches his job at USC. So now you got an extra spot up there in the rotation, interior defensive line. Jade Abasari, I would assume, is going to move up the depth chart just in time for USC's next game. By the way, Jade Abasari is from the state of Minnesota. I hope that he has earned a little bit of trust, and I think he's going to be working his butt off this week. He's going to want to earn that trust. He's going to want to play in this game. He's going to have a lot of fans in that stadium. But again, I want to say I applaud Coach Riley for saying no more. Get out. Somebody turn off Bears biometrics password. Do not let him in the building anymore, at least when we're around. I know that sounds a little harsh, but again, if these young men are going to start playing adult games and making adult money, I'm going to treat you like an adult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm going to tell you if you're making a good decision or if you're making a bad decision. Bear Alexander made a terrible decision. Not his first one, but I think this is for the betterment of the team. So for those of you saying drop it, give it up, or leave it alone already, Mark, it's a new development. Anytime there's new news, you're going to hear about it. I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm going to give you my opinion about it. Because this does affect USC's defense. They're down a man now. Someone who they were counting on to play an integral role this season. So now the defensive line just got a little bit younger. But I think they got better. So addition by subtraction. Hey, all of you NFL fans, I want you to start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I know you guys like to keep up with what's going on. You want to keep up what's going on with all those different games. So you can do that now on FanDuel. The same place where you place your bets, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and a whole lot more than that. And if you've never used FanDuel before, here's your chance to get involved. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You'll lose $5, you still got $200 in your bank. How's that sound? That's FanDuel.com. That's what it sounds like. Let's talk 55. Let's talk about number 55, the famed Cardinal and gold jersey 55. It's been a minute since someone wore that. I mean, think about some of the greats. Junior Seau, Willie McGinnis, Chris Claiborne, Keith Rivers, Lamar Dawson. I think Lamar was the last one to wear it. I've broached this topic before. It's been a while, and I'm bringing it up again because it came up recently on the Trojans pregame show this past weekend. You've got Sean Cody and Jordan Moore and Sua Cravens and Cody Kessler. They were talking about this. They were talking about, what's it going to take to see another Trojan wearing that famed number? How should the 55 be handed out? What will it take? Sua Cravens has a really strong opinion on it. He's got 2 rules, very easy, simple rules. 1, you've got to be one of the top 2 players on the team. Okay, that's subjective, but I get it. Number 2, you have to have come to USC out of high school. You can't be a transfer. Again, I'm not sure how we determine who the top 2 players on the team are. I mean, I get his point. I think what he's ultimately saying is you got to earn it. It's just not going to be given to you out of high school. And I think that's how it should be done. even if you're, well, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Even if you're that super stud straight out of high school to USC, no freshman deserves it. You've got to earn it. So again, I understand where Sue was coming from. There have been a lot of linebackers you look at, hey, can't miss guy. Have to give it to him. Well, some thought Lamar Dawson was that guy. Lamar Dawson wasn't terrible, but I don't think you're going to hear people talking about him in the same conversation that you're talking about a Junior Seau or Chris Claiborne or a Willie McGinnis. So I'm knocking Lamar. I mean, those are three of the greatest to ever play at USC. So again, I agree with Sue. It has to be earned. But let me ask you about this, because he said no transfer. We're in a different era right now. Sua is a little bit old school. I'm old school. I'm a traditionalist as well. But we've got the whole NIL thing now. We've got the whole transfer portal era going on now. Let's say you, out of high school, you go to one college and you decide you want a red shirt after 4 games. It's the new normal, right? USC has seen it happen. What if that player wants to transfer to USC and he's deemed worthy by the 55 committee? Let's just say there's a linebacker out there. He thought he was going to really enjoy his time at, say, Notre Dame. And no, I'm not thinking that Kingston Biliamu-Asa is coming back to USC. It's not what I'm saying here. But let's say a guy goes to Notre Dame or enrolls at a school in the South. And he plays really well, but he just doesn't feel comfortable. Wants to come back home. I wonder how Sue would feel about that. Let's say you saw a guy like Harold Perkins. He wanted to come to USC after he played 4 games one season, out of high school. I think you bend the rules a little bit for that. I really do. Number one, this is an NIL marketing bonanza. You want to take advantage of that. But again, on the flip side, if we're considering the transfer thing, what happens if you give the number 55 to someone out of high school? And, you know, they're more than, I don't know, how do I put this? They play well enough that they want to go get paid somewhere else. It's just weird. You know what I mean? I think the only way to handle the 55 is you've got to play at USC for an entire year. You got to sign some sort of written NIL contract, something that if you are deemed worthy enough to wear number 55, you can't transfer. You cannot use that transfer portal. It's a bad look. And why would you? If you're wearing number 55 at USC, you're the dude. That number is held up there with the retired Heisman jerseys. In fact, they take Heisman numbers out of retirement for players who ask for it. You can't just ask for the number 55. No. Doesn't work that way. It's not retired, but you can't be, hey, I'm John Linebacker, number 1 dude in the country out of high school. Can I have number 55, please? Many thought Lamar Dawson was that guy out of high school. Some people just peak. They never make that transition. Give me your thoughts on this. Let me know what you think. I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow, 5 times a week. We're going to start breaking down Minnesota, getting some quotes from coaches, both sides, USC, Minnesota, PJ Fleck. Row the boat. We're going to sink that boat. I'm back with another episode tomorrow. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.